The search for Lisa Holm was the largest missing person search in the history of Skövde, if not Sweden. The 17-year-old girl had gone missing after getting done with her shift at Cafe 40. Sweden was once known for its non-existent crime rate, but with Lisa's disappearance, things were about to change. What happened to Lisa was beyond horrific. Just 5 days after Lisa vanished, her body would be found, and the media quickly dubbed her case the Milking Room Murder, for reasons that, well, you'll have to hear to believe. Welcome to True Crime Stories. If you're new here, I'm your host, Ty Knotts, and I post new true crime documentaries every single week. So if you're into that kind of thing, and let's be honest, if you're watching this video, you probably are, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything and just keeps you up to date with all my future videos. Lisa Holm was born in Skövde, England. Lisa had always been fond of traveling, and she wanted to study abroad in Australia, and she was defined as a kind, lively, positive, and loving person. She was very helpful towards other people, and she loved the thought of being independent. This is why when Lisa was just a teenager, she started working various part-time jobs to earn some money. A few weeks before the events of today's case, Lisa had gotten a job at a cafe in Blomberg. The cafe was about 40 minutes away from her home, and one of her parents took Lisa to and from work each day. Since this was the first time Lisa was working so far away from home, her parents wanted to be the ones to drop her off and pick her up for their own peace of mind. But on June 7th of 2015, it had been just a few weeks since Lisa had started working at the cafe, and she was confident she could now go to work on her own. But tragically, the very first day that Lisa gained her independence would be her last. Lisa's parents had gotten her a moped for traveling to and from work. Even though her parents were a bit apprehensive about letting her go to work on her own, they knew how important it was for Lisa to experience this on her own. So on June 7th of 2015, Lisa grabbed her stuff, hopped into her moped, and headed to the cafe without any problem. The cafe was busy, people were going in and out, and time flew by. Before Lisa knew it, the clock struck 6 p.m. and it was time to wrap everything up, and Lisa sent a text to her dad a little before 6:30 saying she'd be home soon. Back in Skövde, Lisa's parents were happy and relieved that their daughter had finally gotten free from work and she was on her way back. They were grateful that things had gone by uneventfully. But that wouldn't be the case for long. Sometime later, Lisa's dad received a call from Lisa, and when he picked it up, there was something weird on the other end of the line. Lisa's dad kept calling her name, but he heard other people in the background and some disruption like car doors opening and slamming shut before the call got disconnected. This incident put Lisa's parents on edge, but they chalked it up to just being a pocket dial. Maybe Lisa was on her way and her phone accidentally pressed some buttons and called her parents. So they waited for Lisa to come home. But 40 minutes went by, then an hour, and then 2 hours, and Lisa still wasn't home. This was very unsettling for Lisa's family. The ride from Blomberg to Skövde should have taken around 40 minutes, maybe 50 if Lisa was running late, but it had now been close to 3 hours and Lisa hadn't made it back home. So what was going on? Lisa's family constantly called her while waiting on pens and needles. They were sure that Lisa had gotten into an accident or something. So after waiting longer than necessary, Lisa's dad got into his car and made the drive to Blomberg. He was driving slowly, hoping to catch Lisa on the road, making her way back home. But as he got closer and closer to his destination, well, the more fearful he became. There was no sign of Lisa on the way. When Lisa's dad reached the cafe, he looked around for her, and the first thing he saw was Lisa's moped. He was instantly relieved. He immediately thought that Lisa had stayed back with some friends for a little hangout or something. But as he got closer to the moped, he noticed something alarming. Lisa's helmet was still hanging on the side, and her keys were in the ignition. Why would Lisa leave her keys and moped unattended like this, unless the moped had been abandoned? Her dad looked around for a bit more, and when he couldn't find Lisa anywhere, he called the police at around 10 p.m. and reported 17-year-old Lisa Holm missing. While the police were on the way, Lisa's mom called the cafe owner, who also reached the place in no time and started searching for the young employee. The cafe owner stated that her employees were off the clock at 6 p.m., And now it was almost 4 hours later, and Lisa was nowhere to be found, and her moped was seemingly abandoned. It wasn't like the moped wasn't working or had broken down, it was working like a well-oiled machine, and it made no sense in anyone's mind why Lisa would voluntarily abandon her vehicle and go somewhere else. When the police arrived, they immediately came to the conclusion that Lisa was probably abducted, which was a rarity in Sweden, but they had to go through all the possibilities in this young girl's disappearance. The cafe where Lisa worked was located in a small village, and it was secluded, but it wasn't a hotspot for crime per se. It was peaceful and quiet. Well, the police started their search in nearby areas, and search dogs aided in that process. They went from door to door asking if anyone had seen Lisa, and they even checked the neighboring areas that might stand out or look suspicious in some way. They also asked people if they'd seen or heard anything strange, but at this point, there was nothing. Lisa had just vanished into thin air, and no one could find her. As it was getting really late by now, almost 11 p.m. at this point, the police decided to pause the search till the next morning. In the meantime, Lisa's friends and loved ones spread the word about her disappearance on social media in hopes of jogging people's memories and helping them figure out what happened to Lisa. The next morning, the police search resumed, and this time, a man came forward with something. He worked at a barn right across from the cafe, and he noticed a discarded motorcycle glove on the ground of one of the barn rooms. The man immediately turned the glove into the police, and the investigators asked Lisa's parents to identify this glove as Lisa's. And the answer came as an unsettling revelation. The discarded glove indeed belonged to the now missing Lisa. But why was her glove all the way at this barn? What was Lisa doing there? Well, the police believed that she didn't go there voluntarily, and it was possible she may have been taken there against her will, further cementing that abduction theory. The search for Lisa was huge. It was the largest missing person search conducted by volunteers in the history of Sweden, with hundreds of volunteers showing up every day, looking in various places, searching for Lisa. There were even air searches, and everyone was determined to find her. Soon enough, the police, as well as the volunteers, did start to find some alarming clues. See, the police searched a side road that was near the cafe, and within minutes, they were able to find some receipts, a smashed phone screen, and a phone case, among other things. Deeper searches of this roadside led the police to find more parts of that broken phone. Lisa's parents recognized the phone, or parts of it, and the cover as Lisa's. Things were not looking good. Lisa had gone missing, and now her phone was broken to pieces, and her belongings were scattered on the side of the road near the cafe. Over the next few days, Lisa's ID, her moped license, and her house keys were all found dumped on the side of the road, covered in overgrown grass. The same day, a volunteer, who was actually Lisa's dad's friend, had a strange feeling about the barn across the street. As he approached closer to the barn, he noticed something was amiss. The police tape had been ripped off. This was really unsettling, but against his nerves, the man decided to go into the barn, and within minutes, he was able to find a small earring on the floor. When this earring was showed to the police, it was sadly Lisa's. And when they searched around the barn, they noticed soiled walls, which was a really bizarre sight. A sample of the waste was collected because the investigators had a strong inkling that this would lead to some answers, and it turned out it did. Missing People, a local Swedish organization, also joined the search for Lisa, and they searched the barn and other buildings near the cafe. When they reached the place near the barn, they were stopped by two people in a car who told the volunteers that police had already searched that area. Now, this interaction left the workers of Missing People uneasy. Why would some random people try to stop them from searching a specific area for a missing girl? Regardless, after the car sped off into the distance, the workers resumed their search, and they found some things. They found a pink motorcycle jacket, as well as headphones hidden under some branches. The police were called, and sure enough, the jacket and headphones belonged to Lisa. The property was soon littered with police and forensic teams, and that was when they saw something else in the distance. It was a shed. It was really small, and it was used as a changing room for the barn workers. It also looked like someone had been in the shed recently. See, the shed was surrounded by overgrown grass, but the grass leading up to the door looked like it had just been walked on. So the police decided to look into the work shed too. But as soon as they stepped into the shed, they were hit with a disturbing and rancid odor. It was a nightmare inside. They didn't need any more confirmation that something bad had happened there. When the detectives looked around, their eyes went to a cluster of clothing lockers against one of the walls. Most of them were empty and closed, while one was filled to the brim and wide open. The police checked all of the lockers one by one, but as they reached the stuffed locker, they removed the clothing and miscellaneous items inside, and what they saw literally made them jump out of their skin. And they were police officers. They've seen much worse, but this was horrific. Stuffed inside the narrow and tiny locker space was the body of 17-year-old Lisa Holm. She was partially clothed, and someone had used a rope to end her life. The search for Lisa ended in the worst possible way, because she'd been attacked so brutally by an assailant, and now she was gone. Her family was immediately notified of the discovery, and to say that they were absolutely shocked was an understatement. Her parents were beside themselves. For the first time, Lisa wanted to go to the cafe on her own and prove to her parents nothing bad would happen, but the literal opposite happened, and in a quiet, safe, and cozy town, no less. Can you imagine how Lisa's parents must have felt? The sheer number of what-ifs going through their minds. What if they persuaded Lisa to let them take her to work? What if they just picked her up despite her saying otherwise? And that phone call that Lisa's dad got. It was all so haunting and heartbreaking. Now that Lisa's body had been found, the police had to catch the perpetrator. Luckily, the police were able to get DNA samples from Lisa's body as well as inside of the shed, and everything was sent for testing. In the meantime, the police wanted to look into the two men who crossed paths with volunteers from missing people at the barn, the ones who said that that area had already been searched by the police. Well, after a bit of poking and prodding, the police managed to uncover who these people were. They were Lithuanian natives, 35-year-old Nerijus and his brother. They actually didn't even speak Swedish. They communicated in English, which was the same language in which the men communicated with the volunteers. Interestingly enough, the two brothers worked in the same barn that was right across the road from the cafe where Lisa worked. On top of that, the side road where Lisa's belongings were found trashed was the same road that led to the brothers' house. In the house, the two brothers lived with Nerijus' wife, and they actually talked to the police on the day that Lisa went missing. The fact they spoke English stood out to the police. Another woman came forward and said that a man who didn't speak Swedish approached her in a car and asked for directions in English. He wanted the woman to sit inside the car for a minute so that she could enter the location into his GPS, but the woman obviously didn't get into his car and she just walked away. All of these instances stood out to the police, so they wanted to have a quick chat with these people. When they talked to Nerijus and his wife, they were quick to come to their defense. Nerijus said that he was at home the same time Lisa went missing, and his wife, his only real alibi, was in the kitchen prepping dinner. Meanwhile, his younger brother was at home on his computer. The police obviously didn't buy this story, because they thought that they were simply covering for each other and there was no way to tell whether their stories were even true or not. Regardless, the police took DNA samples from all three people, but since they didn't have any rock-solid evidence against them, they were free to go. Well, it wasn't for long because the DNA results from the work shed came in, and they were a match to someone. See, there were many stains on the walls where Lisa's body was found, and to everyone's disgust, it was male DNA. But that's not even the worst part. See, the shed had a small space with a window that overlooked the cafe where Lisa worked, and most of the male DNA was found on that wall near that window. I don't think I need to go into detail about what this suggests, but the DNA found in the work shed matched that of Nerijus. So from the looks of it, Nerijus was a pervert and kind of a peeping Tom. He basically spied on female employees, including Lisa, from the window of the shed across from the cafe. And remember those traces of human waste found in the barn? Well, that was also Nerijus' doing. It was theorized by the police as well as crime scene experts that the perpetrator probably underwent a rush of adrenaline during or after committing the crime and had no control over his bodily functions, and he soiled himself. The nail in the coffin was found in another adjoining room in the barn. It was used as a milking room for cows, and inside they found the same rope that was used to murder Lisa, as well as Lisa and Nerijus' DNA all over the room and on the pipe to which the rope had previously been tied. When Nerijus' room was searched following the discovery of all this incriminating evidence, detectives found strands of blonde hair that matched Lisa's. Nerijus had been caught, but he and his wife were still holding on tightly to their story. They stressed that someone was trying to frame Nereus, and he was not involved in whatever happened to Lisa whatsoever. That was until the police talked to Nereus' younger brother, and he became Nereus' eventual downfall. See, the younger brother was unable to keep up lying to the police, and he came forward and said that in reality, Nereus was not home when Lisa went missing. And according to his wife, and initially even his younger brother, Nereus was at home between 6 and 8 p.m. on the evening of June 7th of 2015. And he only went out after 8 p.m. to go to a local gas station to get some food. Well, this time, Nereus' younger brother had a completely different story. He said that Nereus basically forced his brother to tell everyone that he was home between 6 and 8 p.m., and when he asked where Nereus truly was, his brother began to unfold everything. He said that Nereus had gone missing for most of the evening, and he actually came back home at around 7:30 or close to 8 p.m. that night. His appearance was shaggy, his clothes were dirty as if he'd taken a roll in the dirt, and he immediately took off his clothes and put them in the washing machine, which was unusual behavior because Nereus never washed any of his clothes immediately. They usually just went in the hamper. To make matters worse, when the police checked Nereus' electronics, they found something very disturbing. Nereus frequented adult websites and watched really questionable adult videos, which bordered on being illegal. Even though there was no definitive evidence of Nereus forcing himself on Lisa during the attack, it's speculated that he got a kick out of seeing people suffer and be in pain. And so following these findings, Nereus was arrested for Lisa's murder and was awaiting trial. What was so astounding was that Nereus' wife stood by him the entire time of his trial. She never once believed her husband to be the perpetrator, and the couple even went as far as blaming the younger brother, saying he was the one who murdered Lisa and somehow planted Nereus' DNA all over the place. Well, no one was convinced because the only person who didn't have an alibi was Nereus himself. The prosecution presented their arguments and stated that Nereus had been eyeing the cafe for a long time by the barn window, spying on unsuspecting young women. On June 7th, it's believed that Nereus lured Lisa into his car as she was leaving work, under the pretense of asking for directions. Lisa somehow got into Nereus' car, and that was when she was overpowered. Nereus then drove to the barn where he ultimately ended Lisa's life in the milking room and soiled himself from the twisted excitement of it all. It's believed that he then loaded Lisa's body into his car and then drove to the work shed, getting rid of Lisa's belongings on the dirt road in the process. He then stuffed Lisa's body into one of the lockers, covered it with clothes, and walked out of the work shed all within an hour, which is terrifying to think about. Well, 5 months following Lisa's murder, on November 17th of 2015, the verdict was finally given. Nereus was sentenced to life in prison in Sweden. He was placed in a high-security prison, but he later appealed to be transferred to Lithuania in hopes of reducing his sentence there. He was ultimately transferred to his native country in 2017, and even managed to get a lower sentence, as low as 15 years. But this happiness was short-lived, because his original conviction was reinstated the same year, and he was going to stay behind bars in Lithuania for the rest of his life. Lisa's funeral was held on July 7th of 2015, approximately a month after her murder, and she was laid to rest in Cedars Church outside of Skövde. The Holm family endured a tremendous loss, and they hoped and prayed that their daughter's murderer never gets any mercy. But one more thing would happen, and it would lead to a very unsatisfactory end to this case. I hate that we're still talking about Nereus, who doesn't deserve any more attention, but it was reported that he was picked on and bullied in prison, to the point that he was beaten black and blue. This harassment followed Nereus all the way to Lithuania, too. And I mean, it's definitely kind of a karmic payback, but on April 3rd of 2022, things took a vicious turn when Nereus was found with a fatal wound to his neck while on a walk in prison. He didn't survive and he passed away on the way to the hospital. It is devastating that Lisa's family had a taste of justice, but just 7 years into that sentence, they'd be left with no more satisfaction at the fact that their daughter's killer was suffering behind bars, because now he was killed by a fellow inmate. Lisa's family, they're just heartbroken. Not only that their daughter's killer got off so easy, but that any of this happened in the first place. For the Holm family, there really wasn't any justice. There wasn't any reprieve. There wasn't any silver lining. They were just met with hurt on top of hurt. But if there is any justice to be had, they can rest easy knowing that Lisa's killer, he may have gotten away with it in this life, but his punishment won't be so light in the next. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. I wanted to give a special thank you to a couple channel members, including JD Marie and Georgie Picaver. If you also want to become a member of the channel, you'll gain access to new videos sometimes days or weeks before they're uploaded to the public, and it is a great way to support the channel and help out. I really appreciate those of you that have decided to do that. If you want to join, you can click that big join button below the video, or find a link down in the description. And don't forget, True Crime Stories t-shirts are also now available. You can grab one of those from a link down in the description as well. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, check out this other interesting case I covered. And don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free and just keeps you up to date with all my future videos. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.